Welcome to From God's Heart to Mine. Thanks for joining me as we aim to draw near to God every day. I hope you're having a great day. In Christian vocabulary, over the last 1,000 or so years, the term saint has come to refer to extra special Christians who excel in character or who accomplish amazing things in the work of the church. And so we reserve the term saint for someone who seems extra special, who seems incredibly good at being a Christian. But for the early Christians, the word saint was an everyday description of each one of them. In Ephesians chapter 1 and verse 1, as Paul is opening his letter and greeting the people he's going to write to, he says, as he often does, Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ, by the will of God, to the saints who are in Ephesus and faithful in Christ Jesus. The word saint simply means holy one. We might relate it to our word sanctified, to make holy, to set something apart. That's the idea of the word saint. It's someone who is sanctified, someone who is holy. And when Paul wrote this letter, he wasn't writing only to the extra special, the top tier Christians in Ephesus. He was writing to the church in Ephesus, the Christians, the everyday, regular Christians like you and like me. And he calls them saints. That's who they were supposed to be. And that's how they were meant to live, as saints, as holy ones. Paul would later tell these same Christians in chapter 5 of this letter, verses 3 and 4, that they should do the things that are fitting for saints. Because they are saints, they need to live in such a way that reflects sainthood, that reflects holiness. But that wasn't something extra special for only the best Christians to receive. That was everyday, regular terminology for who Christians were. So here's what I want to ask you today. Could your everyday life be described as saint-like? Could your regular routine from Monday to Friday be called a holy life? When we think about holiness in the Bible, there are generally, three aspects of holiness that we can be talking about. We could be talking about holiness as it relates to things that belong to God. You remember in the Old Testament how the treasures that were brought into the temple were described as holy. Well, they were holy because they belonged to God, who is holy. The second aspect of holiness is that holiness includes things in which God is present. You remember when God told Moses at the burning bush, take your sandals off because you're standing on a holy ground? Well, there was nothing inherently special about that patch of dirt or soil or rock or whatever it was. What was special was that God was present there. You think also about the temple. It's a holy temple because God was dwelling in the temple. And the third aspect of holiness includes things devoted to God's service. The objects of the temple that the priests would use were called holy because they were set aside to be for God and serving Him. The priests themselves were called holy because their lives were devoted to serving God. And so that's what it means to be holy, belonging to God, a thing in which God is present, and being devoted to God's service. So that's what it means to be a saint. Are you a regular, everyday saint? Does your everyday life belong to God? Is God present in your everyday life? And is your everyday life, your regular routine, devoted to serving God? When you pray today, approach God as one of His saints, His holy ones. You are His. He is with you. So live to serve Him. Thanks for listening to From God's Heart to Mine. My name is Caleb Griffith. You can reach out to me on any platform, and I'll include you in my prayers today. Go ahead and follow the podcast if you want a new devotional thought every weekday. And open your heart today to pursue God's heart and try to show God's heart to others.